The 10-issue weekly X-Men event of 2022 will alternate between X Lives and X Deaths series, and today marks the kickoff of X Deaths of Wolverine number 1. Whereas X Lives was about taking a trip back through Wolverine's comics history, X Deaths delivers a forward-thinking glimpse into the present and future of the mutant Krakoa, one that's surprisingly free of Wolverine. Simply put, X Deaths delivers much of what I hoped we'd see from this event and has tremendously increased my hype for the series. Today I'll answer, who are the stars of X Deaths of Wolverine? How does X Deaths connect to Hickman's Inferno? What is going on with the mystery of Wolverine at the heart of Krakoa? Hey everybody, welcome to Krakin Krakoa. I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. You are listening to a review of X Deaths of Wolverine number 1, Krakin Krakoa number 209. If you want to join me the day this and other X-Men comics come out, come on for the live streams, Casual Krakoas, every Wednesday circa 5:15 Central Standard Time. It'll be uploaded here on the channel. You don't have to join live, but if you want to, I like to answer listener questions and engage with all of the X-Men and Marvel Comics fans that are hanging around and subscribe to the channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and all that fun stuff. If you like Comic Book Herald, spoilers for Discuss Comics will follow. Writer Benjamin Percy, artist Federico Vicentini, colors Dijjo Lima, Frank Martin, and letters by Cory, Petit. I've spent a lot of time over the past year talking about Marvel's handling of Moira X, the biggest game-changing mutant revealed in Hickman and Pepe Larraz's instant classic House of X number 2. Moira's mutant ability of reincarnation with knowledge of her past lives is the reason the Krakoa era of X-Men exists, yet the character was conspicuously absent from nearly all X-Men comics between House of X and Inferno, about a 2-year stretch. It's a controversial approach to say the least. Well, post-Inferno, the dam has now broken, and despite the Wolverine series label, X Deaths number 1 is a Moira book, picking up directly after Inferno number 4. Since X Lives concentrated on the familiar territory of Logan traveling back in time to save Professor Charles Xavier, I hoped X Deaths would focus on a more era-specific mission to save or destroy Moira in the future, and this is shaping up to offer a Terminator-esque version of that. After Inferno number 4, Moira has had her mutant ability and left arm removed by Mystique and Destiny, using Forge's famed cure gun from the 80s Claremont era. And thanks to Doug Ramsey, Moira's life is spared, but only long enough to give her a chance to run from a Mystique hellbent on her death. So the setup here is Moira is going from pulling the strings with Professor X and Magneto behind Krakoa to literally running for her life as mutant assassins and the CIA and anyone and everyone who is aware of her close in on her capture. Up front too, I want to distinguish some points. I don't just like X Deaths of Wolverine because it is capital C connected to the big picture mutant narrative. This comic could have never followed up so literally on Inferno number 4, and I can still picture plenty of versions I would get excited about. What's more important to me here are two elements. Number 1, it's very era-specific. Now, X Deaths is quite purposefully tying into what comes next for Moira, Mystique, Destiny, and mutant kind in Krakoa's Destiny of X. And obviously, that checks off this box. But there are other ways this could have happened. We'll get into this in more depth, but just the cover of X Deaths, a phalanx-infested Wolverine, is tied to the powers of 10 futures we know of this era. If X Deaths was entirely connected to those futures, or to Moira's lifelines, or to Destiny's visions of the future, that would feel era-specific as well. The X-Men have a long and celebrated history, and I've enjoyed so much of it, but what makes the Krakoa era so appealing is the opportunities to play in new spaces with new ideas that we haven't seen before. And then the second point, key element, biggest piece for me, is this is definitely heightened in an event comic, although I think the approach is still semi-applicable to standard ongoings, a sense of mystery and big ideas. And this is where X Deaths, I think, really excels. So, shortly after her escape, Moira finds she's becoming quite ill, and it's later revealed she has cancer. It's a bit unclear to me from this if this is a side effect of having her mutant gifts removed, because otherwise the timing of the discovery is certainly suspect. Or could it have something to do with all the time Moira spent holed up in a Krakoan tumor, aka a no place? I don't know. Regardless, it's yet another layer of the ticking time bombs Moira has to fear now that her death would presumably be final. For analysis, Moira turns to someone who understands cancer better than most, Dr. Jane Foster, aka Cancer Survivor, aka a recent Thor from the Jason Aaron, Matthew Wilson, and Russell Dowderman run, and the current Marvel Valkyrie. This is a nice Marvel Universe touch, especially thematically, given that Valkyrie can see death hanging over individuals, and Deaths of Wolverine, as you might expect, is hyper-centered on Moira's fear of the Reaper. Unsurprisingly, Mystique is masquerading as one of Dr. Foster's nurses and quickly finds and attempts to kill Moira in the hospital before Jane can return as Valkyrie and buy Moira some time to escape. I really enjoy Federico Vicentini's action in these moments, somewhere between the cartoonish expression of Humberto Ramos and the page-shaking vibrancy of later Chris Bichello. I think he does a great job here with what is, it's an escape from the government, escape from assassins, kind of that almost like Jason Bourne-esque, spy book for Moira now, and that's a cool, good fit for this visual style. The manhunt for Moira continues with Percy's beloved X desk, the arm of the CIA focused on mutant affairs, and although she gives herself the classic Black Widow ScarJo blonde hair disguise, which is obviously foolproof, her uncovered Warlock arm feels like a bit of an oversight. I don't know how many women are walking around with the techno-organic circuitry of a Warlock arm, but again, maybe I'm just not paying enough attention to Marvel Universe fashion. Nonetheless, I appreciate how we finally get to see Moira in full action, from taking out CIA agents to stealing a motorcycle and going on the run. It's easy to forget how mother flippin' cool this version of Moira should and can be with all her lives and training, and we start to tap into that potential finally here in, again, what is, for all intents and purposes, the Moira solo book we've been waiting for. Now, the strangest, certainly most mysterious aside in this issue is the introduction of Epiphany, a Marvel Universe version of Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Big Tech. Moira just kind of happens to stumble into a holographic display talking about Epiphany's biotech synthesis, including big-time Black Mirror vibes with these ocular implants that record memories. Like, that's literally a Black Mirror episode. This is not super inventive. Now, their CEO here is Arnab Chakladar, company CEO, and while it's very early stages determining the relevance, the concentration on advancing AI certainly plays with what Hickman developed for Omega Sentinel and Nimrod in his X-Men run, and particularly Inferno. These are definitely themes that I want to see continued explored more heavily in this era of X-Men, as these sort of sci-fi, artificial intelligence, what's coming with the singularity and robots. These are great fodder for stories. They're great fodder for this era of X-Men stories. And this is an interesting, if sort of like, wait, why is this here, introduction of the concept into X Deaths of Wolverine. More clear, elsewhere, we see Black Tom Cassidy, Krakoa's resident non-Doug Island buddy. He senses a strange disturbance with Krakoa and uncovers what appears to be some sort of egg bursting from the bowels of the sentient island. The interior of the egg reveals the phalanxy Wolverine promised on the cover, although what he's up to remains a mystery through the character's very limited presence in this issue. Faye Logan immediately dices up Black Tom when he's discovered, indicating he may not be a friend to mutant kind. Everybody pour one out for Black Tom Cassidy, who will surely be resurrected, but nonetheless gets the Wolvie claws here from this mysterious visitor. Now, there's a single page showing Faye Logan visiting Moira's no place so he can sniff her hat. And aside from revealing that he's a huge pervert, this feels slightly important in the sense that he knows about Krakoan no places and that clearly he's hunting Moira. Again, for protection or murder, we don't know for sure. The issue ends with Jean Grey still hovering over the time-traveling Logan sent back in X Lives of Wolverine, sensing the presence of the future techno-organic Logan on Krakoa. Logan seemingly doesn't want his presence to be known, though, telling her, "I'm no one, I was never here." Nonetheless, this is pretty important because, it tells us that this is not just some simulacrum of, don't know if I said that word right, of Wolverine. This is like the actual, at least, Jean's psychic, telepathy tells us, like, okay, this is actually Wolverine. Like, she's sensing actual Logan here on the island. It's not just some, imaginary version. And this is, of course, where I start to think about Wolverine's history of discrete time traveling, which is, to put it mildly, the worst, and the complete opposite of discrete. Who is this Omega Wolverine? A second Wolverine summoned from the center of Krakoa, while the Wolverine we know lies under this time travel psychohistory with Charlie and Jean. Well, since we're talking about time traveling Wolverine and X Lives, I can't help but think about the 2013 Marvel event Age of Ultron, which features probably the most genuinely insane, poorly thought through time travel story in Marvel event history. I refuse to fully discuss what happens, but in in as short a synopsis as I can muster, in order to prevent the future where Ultron wins, Wolverine travels back in time to kill Hank Pym before he can invent Ultron. Fair enough. This leads to a future where Morgan Le Fay and an army of Doombots rule the world. Okay. And Wolverine then travels back in time to stop himself from traveling back in time and killing Hank Pym before he can invent Ultron. Take a bow, Brian Michael Bendis. Okay, so why is this relevant? Well, the two time-traveling Wolverines make it back to what is now our present, after literally breaking time, and align on a gentleman's agreement to kill off the Wolverine who experienced the Morgan Le Fay alt-reality. This is done off-screen in a cave, to a mutant with the most notorious healing factor in comics. So did the Wolverine paradox actually survive? This has been the subject of fan theories ever since, and absolutely a continuity pull that's in play here as we're talking about a second Wolverine existing in the same place in time as the other prime Wolverine. Now, it's been like almost a decade since this happened. Do I think it's super likely? Not especially. But Age of Ultron stands, it is on the table. So everybody get together. Let's have a toast like the 1970s Miami Dolphins every time another team in the NFL does not finish undefeated. Age of Ultron stands, this is our time. More germane to the era, it could make a lot of sense that this Wolverine is from Omega Sentinel's timeline, the one where mutants always win, and that he's trying to ensure that that comes to fruition. Whether this means killing or saving Moira could go either way. Narratively, I'd kind of prefer it means saving her because she has an absolute murderer's row of potential murders already on her head. Either way, this more directly explains the techno-organic circuitry on this Wolverine, which looks way cooler as a design on the cover than it does in this issue, strangely enough. Since Omega Sentinel engages with Trickster Titans in order for her own travel back to this timeline to start Orcus, and we see similar visuals in the Dominions, the mutants hunt in their Dominions war, like it is very plausible that a Wolverine from this timeline would have encountered these types of beings and therefore would have this techno-organic circuitry as he hatches from his egg through whatever means of time travel they employ. This is definitely my favorite and leading theory for where this Wolverine comes from. I think very, very likely from Omega Sentinel's original timeline. So after X Lives #1, I said it was up to X Deaths to completely turn around the apathy I felt about the event, right? And it does that here. It's a bit baffling why this wasn't the first issue, and I think that's a strategic whiff, but nonetheless, my enthusiasm for the event has done a complete 180. X Deaths of Wolverine is incredibly exciting. It's great. It's a fantastic continuation of Moira's story, which remains the most interesting thing basically in this entire era of X-Men. It is a Wolverine story that does not feature much Wolverine at all, yet the menacing lurking presence of this new Wolverine is an engaging, fun mystery. I love it. It's awesome. I'm very excited now to engage with the rest of this event. I'm curious, especially to see, okay, how are these two timelines going to intersect and begin to come together? Percy's juggling a lot of balls here, right? There's a lot up in the air between X Lives and X Deaths, and I'm very, very interested now to see how everything is going to intersect and come together. Now, the Krakoan for the next issue, which is going to be X Lives of Wolverine #2, is called Living in the Past, which doesn't really tell us much more than we already knew. But again, nonetheless, if this is the path where X Lives is this Wolverine history, and it is him saving Professor X, and then X Deaths is something else altogether, and is mostly focused on Moira, I'm here for that. I'm here for that, and I definitely want to see it intersect, and it gets me excited about where this event is going and where we're heading with the X Office into the destiny of X. So thanks everybody for listening. I'm Dave. You can find my stuff over at comicbookherald.com. You can support the site via patreon.com/comicbookherald. All support is greatly appreciated. Thanks in particular to those supporting the site in the mysterious benefactors tier: Jesse W., Megan Getman, Cole Weathers, Professor X3769, Richard Renz, Adam, Chris Mervica, Tara Nort, Pinball Drew, Mike Solomons, Matt Mahoney, Joshua Bentley, and Alma. Thank you very much. You can find me at Comic Book Herald on Twitter and Instagram. Look for the best comics ever in My Marvelous Year podcast for more of me talking comics. So, in all likelihood, I'll be back next week with X Lives Wolverine #2. Again, also we'll be here live with Casual Krakoa streaming. Subscribe to the channel so you can figure out when that's happening, where it is, how to find it, and all that fun stuff. And hey, come talk comics with us. It's a lot of fun and a good group to get in questions and chat about these exciting, fun books. So thanks everybody for listening, and as always, enjoy the comics.